Mr. Diaz-Balart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary, let me go back to something you and I discussion that we had yesterday, and I think this is, and I'll leave some of this with you if that's all right with your staff. Sure. Yesterday we were talking about enforcing of sanctions, and particularly with Cuba, and as you well know, tourism is outright unlawful. So let me just these are a couple of things that I don't think are too subject to interpretation. If you go on spring break and you go scuba diving, if you go and you do water sports, if you go snorkeling, if you go to take a swim in the warm Caribbean waters, if you go dancing, and if you go on ecotourism, I mean the word itself says tourism, that's tourism. So I will leave with you a couple documents of an entity that's licensed, that's what they talk about in their brochure. They also have an itinerary that ends at noon, and then after that you're on your own. So anyways, I'll leave that with you, and we'll have continued talks. I'm not, obviously you haven't seen this, but again, as you well stated, your role is to enforce the law. Tourism is unlawful. Here are just some examples that I think we need to kind of sit down and look at, because there may be some that are questionable, things like this, where they actually talk about spring break, ecotourism, snorkeling, bird watching. These don't even, but I'll leave that with you if that's all right.
I'm happy to look at it, Congressman. We had a long discussion on this.
Yeah, no, and that's why I'm not asking you for something because you haven't seen this, but this is the kind of thing, however, that clearly doesn't even come close to being under the law.
I would only say that our team at OFAC looks at each application and makes sure that it complies with the law. They review them annually to make sure they comply with the law. I'm happy to look at the materials.
Sure.
But I know that they are very careful about making sure we comply with the law.
Right, Mr. Secretary. I know this doesn't surprise you, but nobody's infallible. Mm-hmm. And so, again, if tourism is not legal, ecotourism is not legal, and if you have somebody that says ecotourism on the front of their brochure, the fact that it hasn't at least tossed up a red flag leads me to believe that maybe I know it's but nobody is infallible.
I will have our team take a look at it.
Right. So we'll sit down about that. And Mr. Chairman, just last, and it's too bad Mr. Quigley is here. I think, by the way, and I thank him for always bringing up decorum. We always have to be reminded of decorum. I do want to, I say my friend Quigley, we usually say that and don't really mean it. In this case, I do. He's one of the people that I really, really like. He is a friend. He's a personal friend, somebody that I greatly admire, so I appreciate that. I do want to, however, just with great decorum, tell the chair and everybody here, decorum is important, but it's also important that people stay focused on trying to answer questions, and I will never, ever be shy or be apologetic about defending the interests of the folks that I represent, who are hurting because their taxes have been increased, who are struggling to make ends meet. So do it with decorum, yes, but I will also do it aggressively. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.